So, welcome everyone to the Solo to Entrepreneur show. You are with me, the host, Lorraine Chai. Now, as a successful entrepreneur being in a space of business, I have come across business owners who thrive for growth and the possibility for more. But what is the secret sauce to success? Now, today I have one of my good friends, Douglas Glanville from Sydney String Center, to share some insights of his success with business. So, welcome. Welcome, Douglas.
Hi.
Now, I knew Douglas for quite some time now, and I don't know how many years that is.
Maybe
Um,
6 or 7 now, I think.
is it 7?
Yeah, it could be 7 years.
Years tend to slip me.
Yeah.
But when I started out, I was just a newbie in the music industry, and I think we were both in the same organization. So hopefully you enjoyed today's podcast. If you like me to be on your podcast or want to work with me, check out my web link on www.solopreneur2entrepreneur.com/link. That is www.solopreneur2entrepreneur.com/link. Australian Strings Teachers Association here in Australia. So I understand that you grew up in a musical family, such as myself. And from
Yeah.
an entrepreneur mind, you are a kind of person that loves learning different things, as a musician, a violin maker, and now a book distributor. And on top of all of it, I didn't know you did law.
Yeah, true story. Yep, I did that in a moment of madness. I went and did a law degree for 5 years because sounded like a good idea at the time, but realized that wasn't for me. So I'm happy doing what I'm doing now in music.
Yeah. So what was that thought process in doing law?
So if wind it back a little bit further, I was really lucky that I played cello to a pretty high standard when I was in high school. That gave me a scholarship to go to pretty good school. So for me, music is all about opening doors and opportunities. And so I'm really grateful that being good at something that I really loved gave me a really good education. And when you're finishing school, you start chatting with career counselors and your parents and friends and what things are you really good at? Okay, well, I'm pretty good at writing essays and I'm pretty good at public speaking and what things could be appropriate for somebody who's good at those things. And then you naturally just ended up at law. I knew business sounded really dreary to me.
At that
Like,
particular time, isn't it?
yeah, it just didn't interest me at all. And so I thought, okay, we'll go do a law degree. And the idea was that I could help people and specifically help musicians. So I was interested in intellectual property. So I majored in intellectual property and copyright law because I thought at least then I can be surrounded by musicians. But it turns out that the legal industry is very adversarial in my view. I mean, I've got a lot of friends who are still practicing law and doing some real good in the world, but I don't like being in conflict with people. And so in the end, it didn't suit me, but I don't regret it for a minute because I learned a lot
Yeah,
from doing
I was
it.
gonna say, like, did you learn anything from law and apply that in a business sense, or did it help you? Would you change anything? Would you go back in time and not do law again, or was it a journey
No,
that you're happy you went through?
yeah, it was great. I loved studying and being in that environment at university. It wasn't a waste of time at all for me. And it just gives you a certain way of thinking about things. There's like a legal way of thinking, which is often problem solving, I think. And so, yeah, I think actually it was a really good thing to do. And these days, actually, law is like a very general degree. Like a lot of people do law and then end up doing something completely different, trying to be helpful, use that law degree in whatever they're passionate about rather than being a lawyer.
True, true. But I think that's all degrees, to be honest. Like,
Yeah.
graduating from the con, all of us wanted to be
Yeah,
musicians. And then we ended up being, business owners, lawyers, doctors, and
absolutely.
that's just a piece of paper on the wall saying that we were musicians at one point
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now, when we both approached each other, I was a growing author, so I was new in the whole industry of self-publishing things like that. And what stood out to me was to me, I see how you love serving others. On top of everything else, is your whole heart of helping others. Wanting to help people grow and you giving me advice when you didn't have to in
Mm,
that learning process for myself. When coming to your shop as well, that's how you run your business. Now, what
yeah.
is your whole concept? I know I have a feeling that's part of you, like having that, drive of wanting to help others. But what can you say about that whole concept of leadership in terms of your service to others?
Yeah. I mean that topic of leadership, which might be interesting quite a bit to your listeners, that's just such a big, like when I first started running the business, I thought this is going to be easy, like I'm a really good musician. So mostly our business sells musical instruments. That's what we do. Why we do it and all that, we can talk about later. And so I was really good at selling things because I loved the instruments. I really wanted to help my customers so I could do that. And I just thought, well, being a manager or being a leader is just like, I don't know, just find nice people and teach them a little bit and it'll be fine kind of thing. It'll take care of itself. But it probably took me 5 years of leading the business to realize that I was completely incompetent at that job, at leading, at being a manager, completely incompetent. And so it really knocked me down at the time. And I had to start from scratch and go, okay, this leadership thing, that's a discipline in and of itself. And if I wanted to have any hope at growing the business, which was going to involve hiring more people and bringing them along for the journey, I really had to learn about leadership. And so I went on a big learning journey. I like to read a lot. So read all these books on leadership, going to courses, start the MBA. I do all these different things to try and get better at that all the time. Listen to podcasts, whatever it is, because you've got to be inspired yourself. It can be quite lonely as a leader. But yeah, now what I do is I've realized that to grow, I'm only as good as the people that are in my team. So as a leader, I'm really focused now on helping them grow and helping them succeed. It was a big mindset change to like I'm not doing the work anymore, and I get when you do the work, you can get instant gratification from that. Like I've helped a customer, and they're really grateful for the advice and for what they feel really good about it. So you feel really good about it, and you do so little of that actual work when you're a leader. You've got to learn to feel that same sense of achievement when other people achieve.
That's right.
Yeah, and that's whoever it is. So it could be my team, or it could be, yes, like we work with a lot of suppliers from Australia and also overseas, and like helping them achieve success through us. Like that's how we've grown it.
No, that's good. That's good. I just watched the old movie The Intern by Anne Hathaway.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and that concept of business in terms of her doing everything, being on the floor, being on the phone. Do you miss that, or sometimes from time to time you do pop on the floor of your shop?
Yeah, I do that partly selfishly because I really like it. So I do love to jump in. And you might be able to catch somebody. There's this concept about like catching somebody doing something right. So like I love to like be around with my team, like in the thick of it with my team, and really like have the opportunity to observe and let them know when they're doing a really good job. So I really like that. And then partly I think it's good just to be on the floor, just to see how things are going, trying to pick up the vibe. So we've got 40 people in the business, or a bit more than that now. So we've got a frontline sales team of maybe 12. I've got a team in our workshop and production, another 12, and then we've got all sorts of like, other functions, purchasing and sort of admin and B2B sales and all that. So yeah, I love to jump in to each of those. I sort of have done all of those roles. So yeah, it's fun to jump in and do it for sure.
Rather than being on, at the back of the the
Yeah,
screen.
can be a bit dreary. Get itchy.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Now, back in the day when I went into the leadership role, so we're going back into leadership. Like when I started as a youth leader actually, and
Okay.
as a
Great thing.
young 20-year-old who was an extreme introvert
Mhm.
and didn't like speaking at that particular time. But for me, it was more of growth and helping my team grow. And I think with like you, with me, it's like wanting to help these young youth people grow into successful leaders. It's for me, it was observing. So, going to other denominations, going to other events to see how leaders run their successful business, whether or not it's a successful practice or a successful church. And up to now, as you also said, it was about listening, reading, as well as for me currently is attending as many conferences and, is getting coaches to help. What would your advice be for solopreneurs out there in terms of what they could do or what has worked for you?
Oh gosh, there's so much. I can talk about how we try and grow leaders in our organization. Firstly, because a lot of people, like me, naively, when I was in my 20s, didn't even realize that it was a thing, that it's important. So I kind of force it on the team gently. Every single morning here, we run a morning meeting.
Oh, I
So
love that about what you do. And when I attended one of yours, it's like, oh, this kind of feels like Apple.
yeah, yeah. Well, actually, I was really inspired by the Apple approach to doing things, and I think they do that in the Apple stores as well. But we start with a whole company meeting more or less every day, and it allows us to make sure we're that like our values are aligned. We discuss problems and things. But one of the best things about it is we share the leadership. The meeting leader moves around every single day, and you're not excused from it. It doesn't matter who you are. So I rarely have to lead these meetings. I'm always participating in my role, but the leader, like yesterday, it was one of the youngest members of the team who's 18. So he had to stand up in front of 30 or 40 people and run through the meeting. And also every day they have the opportunity to talk about something that interests them. So this guy is really interested in physics, and he just gave a 10-minute talk about the physics about violins and like how sound is produced and why things are in a certain way. So what does that speak to? It's about like taking opportunities. It's really easy to do nothing, but it's very dangerous actually, because if you do nothing and you're just like in your zone the whole time, you need to be a little uncomfortable to know that you're growing. So I put these people in this position. Sometimes they thrive, sometimes it's really, really terrible, but they all learn something from doing it. So as far as becoming a leader, like if you've got a really good concept and you're trying to grow a business around it, at some point you're going to have people working for you, and you really do need to work on what that means to be a leader. Yeah, and I would say just get out there and like as you are doing, attending events, speaking, be uncomfortable.
Absolutely. So I have a feeling that your vision aligns with me in terms of pushing your employees to grow more and to elevate further. So, I love how you switch the leadership roles within your company. Because I even though I do business coaching, I still do some conducting, and with my conductors, being a conductor, I do change leadership roles. So I change chairs. So
Yeah,
I'm like, okay, now you guys had the opportunity of being the leaders of
yeah,
your section. Let's just change it around and see if you
yeah,
guys have the opportunity of becoming leaders of your sections. So it gives that opportunity, not just one person being the chair or being the leader the whole year, but it gives them
yeah,
that experience of having that leadership and being disciplined in doing the job that they have to do.
yeah. But also for the leaders to step back and have somebody else do that job,
Mm.
I think that's humbling as well, right? Like if you're used to being the front desk and you have to go at the back for a little while, you'll probably they may not realize at the time they'll learn something from that.
Mm. Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, so that's good. That's good. So with those people out there, sometimes there's opportunities of growing by learning from somebody, and sometimes there's opportunity of growth by just giving it a shot. So I know of some people that do not like that leadership role, but it's good to give it a shot and see if that's actually something that may interest you. So it's great that business owners such as yourself give the opportunity to your employees to test it out and have that taste of probably doing something more and better.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We're going to go into the route where we've worked together. So for those of you that don't know, I think it was a couple of years ago, was it last year? We did this nonprofit project where Douglas supported my nonprofit project in Nepal in donating a whole bunch of instruments. And that whole service to others, like it's not just within paying customers, and it's not just within our community of employees and our connections with people, but it's serving the community wherever it may be. And I know that Douglas and his business is a true believer in serving the community on a large scale as well. So he helped with that project with me being in Nepal, and the kids love that. Now, tell me where that interest came from in terms of serving the community, giving back to the community.
Oh, that's really good. I think that's just been ingrained in me from such a young age. Firstly, from my parents, and then just the type of education that I received. Serve it like you can get great gratification out of serving other people and helping other people, right? And particularly if you've come from privilege, if you are privileged, I think you've got more of a responsibility than anybody to make sure that you're using what you've been given to help others. So yeah, that was always like community service was always a big part of all of the schools that I went to. It was not even a question. That's not something that I've ever really questioned. And so when you came
It
to
became
me,
natural for you, isn't it?
yeah, it's like if I asked you what you did on the weekend, you'd probably tell me a lot of different things, but you probably wouldn't tell me breathing. Breathing wasn't
Yeah.
something, you know what I mean? You're just doing it, right?
Yeah.
So I think for me, and in part of this business as well, like service is a really big part. So wherever we can, we're trying to get involved. So the type of things, and yeah, doing that from the very beginning. So what do? We at a community level, we're trying to support local organizations. So we usually sponsor all of the community level orchestras around the place because usually they're a bit cash strapped and or they're looking for members, or it's like, what's their problem and how can we help? So I've been trying to connect different people. And then, yeah, we have over the years supported lots of organizations where you've got people like yourself who are donating their time to really enrich the lives of others. Like you're aligned with me. It's like music is one thing that we know it's good. Like it's good for the individual. It's good for a child. It's good for an adult. It's good for it's good. Yeah, um, and whatever we can do to share that. It was sort of. I think it wasn't until I probably left school or toward the end of my schooling when I realized. So I probably like you, Lorraine. I had to play music every single day. So every day we got up in the morning, and then I had to practice
Stuck
my
in a
cello.
room practicing from
Yeah,
morning,
had to practice the
sunrise to
piano.
dawn.
Yeah, all those things, and now I'm doing it with my kids. That's a lot of fun. But it took me a while to realize like that's not normal. So because all the people that we were hanging out with were all
Being
doing the same
trapped as a
thing.
mole underground, practicing
Yeah,
until the sun goes down. Yeah,
yeah.
when I
But
was at the con, that was the life.
yeah, yeah. But God, it's good. Like it gave me so much the benefits of learning music just go far beyond the ability to just play the instrument, right?
Yeah,
So
but it's not just all about giving. It's like giving with a purpose, though. Like that's what I see
yes,
in you is quite similar to myself, where for me it's like sharing that whole experience of learning an instrument and being able to play together as a team. It's like team building as well. It's being
yes.
able to work with somebody else, and it's being able to learn the skills of teaching, being able to learn the skills of listening and working with the instrument and performing. Like there's a whole nother level instead of just okay, I'll just give whatever. There's a
Yes,
lot
that's right.
of
It's
vision
it's something
behind
we
that.
really care about. So like our we've been talking a lot lately about what our vision will be for our organization of next, and we're workshopping this idea that we want to make music as celebrated as national sport, right? So at the moment, like you can fill a stadium to watch Socceroos or Matildas or an Australian rugby union, whatever, tennis, whatever it is, and the whole country is watching.
Mm.
Like that's what we want for music, because we see the benefits of music as far beyond just being able to play the instrument, right? So
Mm.
you can choose how you like. I know we could just donate to the Red Cross or something, but that it doesn't mean much to us. So we choose to try and find projects where we can make a meaningful difference. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
So
so when
up
it's
to this day, like I still have kids from Nepal. Like they're like, oh, Miss, we know we just learned a new piece and this is
Mhm.
amazing. It's creating that creativity as well. It's, giving that spark of the possibility of so much with music, right?
Yeah,
Because we grew up with music and now we're, business owners and doing so much on top of music. So it's not just all about music, where people have to understand is there's a lot that we can learn in any industry, in any skill that we
yeah.
develop or learn.
You could have those guys in the kids in Nepal. You could have sparked something that changes the trajectory of their life and leads them to a more privileged life, and hopefully then they share that on. We did the same thing with a school in Afghanistan 10 years ago as well. We got like that's the craziest place that we've ever had to send things to.
It went
Yeah,
through the borders.
yeah, it got through the borders. Yeah, you had trouble in Nepal, but
Yeah.
this was a real nightmare. I mean, it was still before all of the recent stuff in Afghanistan, but we got, a double bass,
Oh wow.
five cellos, five violins and two violas or something like that. We got it all packaged up and somehow managed to get it to Afghanistan. Yeah, that was really crazy. But and who knows where that is now? But like it made a difference to those guys at the time. A lot of girls as well. Like prior to that and since then as well. Like it's been really hard to be a woman, and certainly a woman learning Western music.
Mm.
Is not something that's that they can do now, I think. But like at that time, it made a big difference. But we do that as well. We've got partnerships with people like in the Northern Territory and even in parts of Sydney that you know um, socially disadvantaged schools and communities and things, like where we can, we make a difference. Because to be honest, most of our customers are really in a really good position, like as we are. So yeah, I just feel that sense of responsibility and how we choose, like how we make a difference. We're doing it through music. So pick something that's passionate to you. There's no point like, yeah, I mean, you'd be better off having that from the beginning. Try and work out what your noble purpose is in the business that you're trying to set up, and go, well, how can we make a tangible difference on the world?
Absolutely. So it could be a service, it could be a product. If we don't
Yeah.
have products, we can always serve by actually contributing our time into giving back
Mm-hmm.
to the community, really.
Yeah.
Right. So now, as business owners, as solopreneurs, the thought process of, okay, we have to start a business from scratch as a
Mm.
startup company. But for yourself, was inheriting the business from your parents. And some
Yeah.
people are like, okay, it's buying a business from somebody else. How was that journey of you taking over from your parents?
Um, was
So let
quite
me
awesome.
backtrack. So
Yeah.
in the beginning, your parents started in a house, right? As we all would.
Yeah, we started in our garage.
Yeah, that's right. I remember
Yeah, we
you
converted
saying.
the garage and it was a little workshop. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's just growing from that. Who made that growth, and how was that transition of you taking over as the director?
Right. So the first 10 years were all my parents, and take no credit from that. Um, they got into the business because so dad's a violin maker, mum's a violin teacher. They got into the business because they, like me now, believe that music is, a good thing, and they wanted to be able to, be involved in a business that was doing good through something that they really loved. And as it happens, they were both quite knowledgeable and made quite a formidable pair, because mum was really focused on how kids learn music and what they needed to to learn music. And there's like a bunch of things that you need to be successful, but one of them is really good equipment, and possibly advice around that as well. And dad had all the technical knowledge, how they're made, how to make something well, a quality product. So we never sold really anything really cheap that didn't work. Everything had to work and work really well. So the first 10 years, it's like just grit,
Mm.
um, a little bit of risk. Dad lost a job very unexpectedly while he was considering starting this business. And that was when my mum was pregnant with my like younger brother, and it was just a really difficult like I remember like I was 7 at the time. I remember this feeling the stress.
But sometimes it's stress like this that actually gives these people a push in terms of
Yeah,
doing it, isn't it?
absolutely. Yeah. So as it happened, one of mum's students, so we had no money to do this. Mum and dad had no money to do this at all. And but as it happened, one of mum's students, the dad was the local branch manager of Commonwealth Bank, and they basically went to this guy, and they, would you consider giving us a loan? And like, I mean, sounds like the Wild West now. Like, who would give a loan to somebody who like didn't have a job and like, for a business like that, it'd be the equivalent of like trying to get a credit card today or something for 10 grand and like using that to start like, kind of high risk. But he said, look, I think we need $10,000 to get started. And he's like, look, I know you guys. I trust you guys. I'll give you 20. So we started with 20. Yeah. Yeah.
From 10 to 20. Okay.
Yeah. Easy negotiation. So they started with $20,000. And basically started from home. We tried briefly with a little store, but found even that was the overheads were too high. It was better for us to be doing it from home. And off and running. And like every dollar that they made either went back into supporting the family, which right, because that the big why for them is like, they wanted to be able to provide for their kids, or back into the business.
Yeah.
So like that was like the seed money, right? We never had to borrow money after that for years and years and years. And then it was just grit. So I remember like we were working at home, dad would get up at like 3:30 in the morning, and he'd be cutting violin bridges or doing rehairs or whatever it was, to then like put on a happy face and then wake us up at 6 o'clock for practice.
Oh yeah.
And then
well done, Dad.
I'd see my parents for an hour, a couple of hours before we went to school. Go to school, they'd be running the business. Mum would be teaching. Like mum's teaching salary really supported the business in the early days. So it worked really well.
But is that great balance that your dad had in terms of making it work, right? It's that doing whatever it takes, as they say, in terms of creating a successful business, on top of the balance of having family time and also me time. I'm assuming he would have some time for himself.
Oh, I don't know about that. No, he would. I like probably a little bit, but I never felt like my parents were away or absent or anything. They both worked really, really hard, but they always made sure that the time that they spent with us was real quality time, even with 3 kids. So I'm really grateful for that.
So how did you come into the picture in terms of taking over?
So
was it like, oh, I have to do this because I'm the oldest child and I have to do this?
No, I don't think so. I mean, so mum and dad, having both done music degrees, were really keen for me to do something else. So that was another reason why I did the law degree. It was like, that was a safe thing to do as well. Right. Rather than studying music. And the idea was like, oh, if I wanted to, then I can study music later once I've got this degree. Toward that whole time I was working in the shop. So I would work on Saturdays and like in between classes at uni, like I would pop back and I would help out. And I really loved it. Like I loved that more than being at uni for sure. And I just enjoyed being part of that and having a responsibility and, and learning about violins. It's a really interesting history about the products that we sell that dates back hundreds of years. So that side of things fascinated me. I loved working with my hands. I did that for the 5 or 6 years that I was at uni. And then toward the end of that was starting to have some conversations with mum and dad, like, I'm not sure that I really want to be a lawyer, but I really feel like we could do more with our business if we had the time and the resources to be able to put into it. And I had some ideas how we could grow it. But then I thought, well, this is all I know. right, this business is all I know. If I'm going to run this business, I should go work for some other people for a while.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, even if I did that and it was terrible, I'd know what not to do.
Not to do. Yeah.
Yeah. So spoke with one of Dad's friends who is a violin maker in Germany. And
Also, still in the music industry though, but just somebody else.
yeah, I
Right.
didn't want to work in anything else other than music, you know. So yeah, spoke with this violin maker, and I was like, look, I'm finishing up my degree soon. I really want to travel and work for other people. And do you know anybody that would give me a job? And he was like, no problem. Come work for me. So generous his time. Music retail, music instrument industry, everyone is mostly generous with their time, you know, and keen to pass on knowledge, you know. So went to Germany then in 2008 and took some time. I worked for these two violin makers there, and I really learned about violin making, which I could do a little bit of, but that really, you know, it was like all day, every day. And but what I really got out of that was how our industry works, right? It's fascinating actually. Like the finished product, we have a violin on the shelf here, and it's like the pegs have come from somewhere. Like the fingerboard's been grown for 100 years on a tree in Africa and shipped to Europe and then cut into pieces and stored for years.
The
And then
process is like so, yeah, huge comparatively
yeah,
to what we know.
yeah, you don't think about it, but this is like capitalism, right? So like everyone has something that they can do and that they can offer to the process that ends up, you know, becoming a product at the end of it.
So those of you that are not musicians, we were talking about parts of the instruments.
But yeah, sorry, yeah, yeah, parts of the violin. But in this little town where I was, it had this ecosystem where people would so there were families that for years had just been making violin pegs, violin
Wow.
bridges, violin fingerboards. There are guys that had the tools to just make the ribs. There are guys that go into the forest and cut down trees and bring them back and cut them up and store them for 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. And all of this is all working together. I'm like, this is fascinating. It's really interesting how it all works. So I came away, and that's just to making new stuff, not let alone the old stuff. I came away from that time with this curiosity about, you know, how I could take all these things that I've learned from this period and apply it to our own business. And by that stage, mum and dad, like their health wasn't that great that year. Came back and I just had no choice. I was really like forced into it, and had to start running the business. And at that stage, we had 2 employees, and we had to do everything. So between just a couple of us, I had to learn about taxes and payroll
Yes.
and
Yeah.
all of the really boring, dreary things
That we
that,
never think about as
yeah,
solopreneurs. Yeah.
yeah, you get started and like you're like, oh man, all I want to do is what I'm really passionate about, but I've got all this other stuff. And I really like to learn how things work before I delegate. That's
Exactly.
it's a good and a bad thing, maybe. I'm letting go of things more as the business gets bigger. But at the time, like I took myself off to do a payroll course, and I took myself off to do a finance course, and then I was learning about. I built our first 3 websites. I built the first websites that we had actually back in like 2002, just using HTML and stuff. Like I was just fascinated by how it all worked, and so
Yeah, but your
yeah,
fascination of things, like I have to learn to let go because I'm like, oh, I can do everything and I love it. But the thing is, you need to know where your effort is best placed,
yeah,
to
that,
generate money too.
that's it. So now I've learned the skill that I'm working on is not how, but who. So
Mm.
who can I get to do this that's going to do a much better job than I ever could, even though I really enjoy doing some things. I've learned to let go of that and find, you know, join other people doing it. So I don't know if I answered your question, but that's how I got into the business. And then like I had this vision at the beginning, like what we do is important in our industry, and we can do good in the
For
world.
So for your growth in how Sydney Strings was, I saw was you guys take actions pretty quick because there was one point where there was a product. It's called the Bow Buddies.
Oh yeah.
So before you guys took over, I actually found the product before, like when it first
Mm-hmm.
launched. And there
Mm-hmm.
was a possibility of me actually being the distributor because there was chats about that with me and Ruth. But at
Yeah.
that time, I was like, okay, I'm just a small musician teacher that's traveling from house to house. How can I make it work? So at that time, it didn't really work out for me. And then you guys came on board and became the distributor in Australia in terms of
Mm.
the bow bodies. So I see how you guys have grown from that shop and then expand to now what double two buildings worth of products, and then now being a book distributor on top of everything. Is that growth and that quick action, as I know a lot of business owners tend to just linger around that the decision. It's more of like you guys just take that quick action and just make it happen.
Yeah. It's about like it's the phrase like failing your way to success. Like because we've definitely made a lot of like I remember a couple of times I made some really bad decisions which really cost something. And like or it felt like a lot of money at the time. Like
But how many bad decisions can you make in order to make great decisions, you know?
yeah. So like, but yeah, so every time I've done that, we've really learned about it. We have a lot of learning moments in our business now as well. Like if somebody's made a mistake, we try not to blame the person. We really look at the system. Like there's probably a systemic failure as to why something bad has happened. We take that time to really reflect on that and learn from that. And I've had employees that have made bad decisions with the consequence of like tens of thousands of dollars sometimes actually. And you can either like get angry at them and
Yeah, but
fire
it's
them,
it's like
whatever. But
how do you prevent this from happening, right? It's
yeah,
that skill of how you can prevent it from happening and how you can do it differently.
yep. To me, yeah, if they've made that mistake and they've learned something from it, then that's gold for me because they're not going to make that mistake again. We've learned something, we'll do it much better next time. So yeah. Mm.
We could go on and on, isn't it? It's like really fascinating, isn't it? Right. If anyone is interested, I'll put down on the description in terms of where you can check out what Doug does with the business. And he does a lot. So they run a music bookstore at Lib, and you guys make instruments. So if you guys are interested in having instruments, and I guess you guys ship them internationally as well. So if any one of you are interested,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
you can
we
suss
do.
it out. And they're also the new book distributor in Australia, so they currently hold my books as
Yeah.
well. So I will put on a description if you guys want to learn more. If you want to have music lessons, I'm sure he knows connections for online learning. It depends on where you are at. But yeah, this is a great chat, Doug. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Lorraine. This has been fun.
And stop recording.